Westfield.
This is Mark Auerbach and Arts Beat Radio here on 89.5 FM WSKB. The music you're hearing as we open today's show is by Dave Burnell. He'll be joining us in the studio today for the second half hour of Arts Beat Radio. And in our first half hour, we're going to be talking with Chester Theater's Daniel Elihu Kramer. The Chester Theater just finished a great season, and you may think things are quieting down, but they're already planning for the upcoming season and a couple of interesting trips. So without much ado, good morning, Daniel.
Good morning, Mark.
Are you on vacation now, or have things ramped up for the upcoming season?
So there's a little of everything happening. We're taking a little breather, having, as you said, completed a really terrific summer season. We're, of course, planning a trip that we're taking next month to Canada. We're planning next summer season, and we're planning the trip that we take each March to London to see theater.
Have you already selected the shows that you're going to see for the upcoming tours, or do you wait until right before to get whatever's really the hot ticket?
Well, for London, we haven't yet. They've just started announcing plays that will be playing while we're there in March. So that's a process that we just move into. But as you said, it also gives us the opportunity to really figure out what's going to be cool to see and what will be exciting. One of the things that I think a lot of our travelers enjoy is that often one or two of the shows we see will show up in New York the next year, and then they get to tell their friends what's worth going to because they already saw it in London.
But that's sort of the same thing now with shows in Canada. I know that Toronto has a theater scene that rivals Broadway on many levels, and that a lot of theater that we get to see in New York or here in the area originates in Toronto or at the festivals in Stratford.
That's absolutely right. And in fact, as I think you know, we're going to both of those next month for our Canada trip. We'll be spending the first part of our trip at Stratford, see three shows there, then two more in Toronto. And you're absolutely right that a lot of stuff that comes to New York has made its way through Toronto, and occasionally through the festival. And then London, of course, those are often imports. For one example, we, on our trip last year, saw a really marvelous play by Jez Butterworth, who wrote the play Jerusalem that was on Broadway some years back. A wonderful play called The Ferryman, and that's opening next month on Broadway. And we've been able to tell a lot of folks, hey, this is a terrific play. It's one you want to see. And in fact, I think a number of us are planning to go see it again. We liked it so much.
And his play, The River, opens TheaterWorks season next month as well. He's a playwright that a lot of his successes have been in London and then come across the Atlantic.
That's exactly right. So Mark Rylance was in the production of Jerusalem a bunch of years ago, and then when The River was on Broadway, it was actually starring Hugh Jackman. And he's just a really marvelous playwright, and it was certainly one of many treats on our London trip to get to see that show sort of before anybody here knew much about it.
Now, when people go with you on a tour to either, let's say, Toronto or to London, they get to see shows, but is there time to see other things in the theater worlds in those two cities, like the theater museums, or go backstage and meet some of the creatives?
Absolutely. We do a lot of different things. So part of the purpose of the trips is, of course, to see these plays, but part of it is to be somewhere exciting where there's a lot going on. Be it theater and music, as well as museums and a lot of other great stuff to see. So we do a few things about that. One is that we just make sure that we don't fill up everybody's day, right? We'll see a play perhaps in the evening. The next morning we might get together, have a great conversation about that play, and then we'll say, here's some cool things you might do, or you may know what you want to do. Go enjoy the day, and then we'll see you at the theater. We also get great introductions to the theater scenes. So, for instance, when we're in London, Matt Wolfe, who is the London theater critic for the New York Times, comes and talks with us about what's out in front of us in the week. When we're at Stratford next month, we'll actually have the literary manager of the Stratford Festival coming and talking with us about the festival and about the plays we'll be going to. And we also, I often, in fact, I just did this with Toronto. I said, here's an evening we're free. If you're looking for more, here's some things that might interest you to consider.
Have you been to Toronto and Stratford before, or is this a first for you?
So this is a first trip for the theater and a first for me in a long time. So I'm excited about it because I get to have an experience that I don't know as much about. And I've had a great time talking with a range of friends and, professional acquaintances who know the scene best in terms of how to prepare to go about it. I also actually have had fun with some back and forths with a wonderful cook and cookbook writer who's been giving us some great recommendations for restaurants while we're there.
So people are really going to get, in terms of the Canada trip, they're going to get an experience of Toronto, which is urban and kind of a New York without the trash. I always find that every time I've been to Toronto, it's so clean. And then Stratford, which is kind of like the Berkshires of Ontario, I guess, for lack of a better thing. It's a little bit more rural. It's a little bit more relaxed and stuff like that. And then when in London, like the total urban experience.
Yeah, I think it's a great range. I think that's exactly right because, as you said, Stratford is certainly a little slower paced and a little more casual. Toronto's a real city for folks who have not been there or not been there recently. It's a pretty marvelous place. And then, London, the interesting thing about the London tour is we do it every year. So the fall tour this year was Toronto. This year will be Toronto and Stratford. Last year was Washington, D.C. Next year we'll be going to Chicago. But London we do every March because the city is essentially inexhaustible, right? You never run out of things to do there. One of the things that leads to is we have a lot of folks who come with us. I would say each year's London trip is about a 50-50 mix of folks who've done the trip before and just love coming out there, and folks who are joining us for the first time.
Now, Chester's not the only theater that does trips as part of its, programming. I mean, I know Goodspeed Musicals does Broadway and also does London, and the Springfield Symphony is doing a trip this year to the Aspen Music Festival in Colorado. And, of course, Public Radio does trips abroad to the music centers of Europe and things like that. What is it about doing international theater programs enhances the programming that you do here?
For us, I think it has to do with what sets Chester Theater Company apart in the first place, and that's our real joy in and commitment to conversations, to really sort of at Chester in the summer doing plays where there's plenty to think about and plenty to talk about, and to creating so many forums where we get to have those conversations. One of the things that's led to for us is an audience that really loves thoughtful theater and really loves to share ideas. And I think that for us, the trips provide more opportunity to be involved in those same kinds of conversations, right? To see work we wouldn't get to see if we stayed home, to have experiences elsewhere, and to share what we're experiencing. So that I think that in some ways, it feels to me like our trips come out of the exact same kind of mission and impulse as the rest of our work, as our summer season does, which is the real joys of having those experiences together.
And I would assume for the people that go on these trips with you, they get a chance to hear from you on a one-on-one basis what your philosophy about theater is, and probably connect better so that they can understand what you're doing in Chester.
It's been a treat because, as much as I love the conversations I get to have with people during the summer, they're so often brief or they're in larger group settings. And the trips are a real opportunity for me, which I adore, to get to know some of our audience better and to really form more personal relationships and have the kinds of conversations you have when you have more time, when you can sit down over a drink at the end of the evening, when you see each other at breakfast. And I've really come to admire so much some of the audience members I've come to know through having that kind of time to spend together.
Where can people find out about the itineraries? I know that there are summaries of them online, but if somebody wanted the full itinerary and everything that includes, where do they get the information?
So the best thing to do would be to do one of a couple of things. They can always email me, and I'm just Daniel@chestertheater.org. Theater is R-E. Or they can give us a call, 413-354-7770. Toronto at this point would be more sort of for information's sake, in that we've got our theater tickets, we've got our plane tickets. But London, we're just starting to put together all the particulars, and one of the easy things for me to do, for instance, is give somebody, last year's detailed itinerary and say, here's a great example of the kinds of things we might be seeing. Generally in London, what we'll do is we'll see maybe a couple of shows on the West End, maybe a show at the National, and then a couple of shows in off-West End theaters where you'll see work that if you travel there on your own, you might not even know to see.
Now, I know that people that go to New York, and maybe we can talk about this a little bit, but people that go to New York can pick up the New York Times or go online and look at Playbill or Broadway Stars or Broadway Box and find out a list of everything that's happening from Broadway entertainment to off-Broadway and the more obscure things. How do you find out what's going on in the theater in Toronto or London? Are there similar sites that you can look at or resources that you have? So if you were planning a trip and you're saying, well, they're going to cover 4 shows and I have 3 extra performances available, how would you find out what's playing?
There are a bunch of things that we do. One is, and I mentioned earlier, Matt Wolf, who is, as I said, the London theater critic for the New York Times. And frankly, Matt and I trade ideas around, and while he's very careful never to sort of say, you should definitely go see X, he does a great job of kind of letting me know what's out there and what's coming up that he's excited about. So that's one thing. I really recommend, I'll be honest with you, I guess should give away my tricks, but there's a wonderful publication in London called The Stage, and their online site, which is thestage.co.uk, is a terrific place to read news about what's happening in theater in London. I couldn't recommend it more highly, and all across the UK, actually. And then a lot of it is just starting to really know theaters, right? So there's certain theaters in London where I almost certainly know I want to see what they're doing, right? So unless I look and I go, oh, we're not going to want to see that play, or we just saw a production of that, I'll almost inevitably say, we should try to go see that. That's a cool place. I bet what they're doing will be really interesting. So there are a lot of different resources that I pull in. And, of course, I'm in conversation with a lot of other directors, playwrights, actors about what they know about what's going on out there. Part of what's going on these trips, we hope, for the folks who come along, is that this is a really curated theatrical experience, in a sense, that it allows folks to see exciting plays that they might not always know to go see on their own.
Do you get a chance, besides London and, in this case, Toronto and Stratford, do you get to go to New York and other theater centers over the course of a year to see what's going on?
I do, never as much as I would like. As you know, I also teach at Smith College, so there are certain times folks need me there. I'm in New York a fair bit, never as much as I would like to be, but I get to see a fair bit of stuff down there. It's interesting because I'm always torn when I'm in New York between seeing just sort of whatever I would see by myself as an audience member and saying, ooh, I wonder what that play would be like for Chester. Maybe I better go to that one. But I also try to make sure that I'm going to see the kinds of things we might never do at Chester, and just expanding my sense of what's going on there. Hartford, you just mentioned TheaterWorks. Hartford is an amazing resource. There are a lot of pretty terrific things going on there, and that's not far for most of us in this area, and I think that we're all smart if we take advantage of that. And then I also get out to Boston, especially to see what's happening at ART and some of the smaller theater companies there.
When it comes to personal theater going, not the theater going that you have to see to plan Chester's season or to plan the tours or to plan what you're going to teach at Smith, do you gravitate towards any particular kind of theater on a personal level?
Yeah, that's interesting. I love plays with music, not necessarily always musicals, but I love plays where music is really integrated. And those excite me. I like to see work that's a little more experimental than we probably do at Chester, but when I get a chance to see that kind of work, I love to. For instance, coming up soon, the Emily Dickinson Museum is reviving a wonderful piece by a guy named John Bechtold. That's this two audience members at a time immersive theater piece. And I love seeing that kind of thing. I'm really excited to go down to the public, actually, to see a play I missed in London, which is Girl from the North Country, which is a play that incorporates Bob Dylan songs throughout. So kind of a range of things, but I like to see something that I think might surprise me a little bit.
In retrospect, looking at the Chester Theater season this year, what was your high point in terms of the plays? Maybe one that you didn't expect to happen, or one that you really did hope would happen of the 4 shows that you did?
Gosh, I guess a couple of things. I think Disgraced was a really interesting project for us, the Pulitzer Prize winner by Ayat Akhtar that we did as our second show. And we were hopeful that people would be engaged by those characters and what they're going through. And I think we went in, I don't know if concerned is the right word, but hoping that it wouldn't be people's reaction, that they just thought, oh, these characters are props, these characters are mouthpieces for positions. And it actually turned out to be a production that audiences were so engrossed by. We had amazing conversations after each performance that we, followed with something, a great panel, and it frankly became our, side note, became our bestseller of the summer. So that was really exciting, and it was great working with Kristen Van Genhoven, who's the artistic director at Wham Theater, and, a marvelous cast. And I think that was, I don't know if it was the highlight, but it was certainly a highlight of the summer for me.
I found Disgraced very exciting because it was a playwright who I had read about and knew had won a Pulitzer Prize, but up until this year had never seen anything that he had written. And I saw The Invisible Hand at TheaterWorks and then Disgraced within a month or two later at Chester. And I thought, wow, how did I miss this up-and-coming playwright and his point of view in all of my theater going? And I am so glad that I've been exposed to his work.
Yeah, I think a lot of our audience came away feeling that way, and it was a really gratifying experience for us. For me personally, another high point was at the end of the summer when we did Andy Baker's The Aliens. And of course, I'm prejudiced here because this is the one that I chose to direct. But I think it was a play that, even in how it goes about its work, the long silences, the ways we spend time with those characters, I wondered sort of what level of challenge was that to our audience, and how is our audience going to feel about it? And it really, I think, was a powerful experience for a lot of folks who came to see it. And, in that same way that I was talking about earlier, a chance to see a kind of theater that felt a little different from what folks might be used to. And actually, again, I don't want to judge everything this way, but it became our second biggest seller of the summer, and really grew into its final week in terms of attendance, which always tells me that people are telling their friends about it.
And you also had an incredible cast of people, all of whom have been involved in Chester before on one level or another. But to have those 3 actors with their resumes and the interface and everything, that made it a good evening of theater personally for me.
I'm glad you think so. I was thrilled to have that cast. And, that was the kind of cast you don't get through auditioning. You get that kind of cast through knowing good actors and calling them individually and saying, I have something I'm dying for you to come do. And we're very lucky that we have actors who are excited to come join us. One of the things I'm dying to do, and we're still trying to figure this out, is I'd love to start finding a way to have 1 or 2 of those actors whom our audiences know join us on these trips. I just think that it would do so much to add to the kinds of conversations that we get to have around the plays, and for those actors in our audiences to get to know each other a little more would be fascinating.
We're talking with Daniel Elihu Kramer from Chester Theater Company. We're going to take a quick break to acknowledge the underwriters who support programming here on WSKB. While we're taking that break, go look at the theater itineraries for the Toronto and London trip at chestertheater.org, and we'll be right back.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Comcast and Xfinity.com, offering Xfinity TV, Internet, home phone, and home security services. Information on all that Xfinity has to offer in the Westfield area is available online at Xfinity.com.
We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
Thursday morning from 6 till 8, it's Patrick Berry, owner of the Westfield News Group.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Mark Auerbach. You're listening to 89.5 FM WSKB, Arts Beat Radio. Peter Coles is our chief engineer this morning, and we are broadcasting live from the studios at Westfield State University. Next week, a special program will be celebrating the 75th anniversary of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, and that's a major milestone for any American orchestra. So we're very lucky to have them in Springfield. And joining us will be the composer Adam Schoenberg, who grew up in Western Massachusetts and who has a piece of music that is being programmed. We'll have Maestro Kevin Rhodes on the program and principal tuba player Stephen Perry. So don't forget to join us next week at 8 o'clock. On air right now, Daniel Elihu Kramer from the Chester Theater in Chester, Massachusetts. If you haven't been following them, you just missed a great season that they concluded. They have theater trips upcoming to Toronto and later on this year to London. And Daniel, I know that in between all this, you're teaching theater at Smith. Can anybody go to see the theater performances at Smith College?
Absolutely. In fact, there's a lot of information on our website and stuff that we send out about the theater that's going on. We have an original musical that will be coming up next month at Smith. We have a lot of sort of larger and smaller productions. I'm actually looking forward to the fact that in the spring I'll be directing a production of As You Like It with our students. And we have a lot of folks from Northampton and from further afield who make the Smith productions a pretty regular part of their theater going. And you can't beat the price.
I've actually, to be very honest, never been to a performance at Smith other than in the summer when I think it was called New Century Theater. Where do you all perform?
So Mendenhall Theater Center, which is right on Green Street on the Smith campus, is a pretty wonderful theater facility with two great spaces in it. One very large theater called Theater 14, and then a great flexible black box space called the Halle Flanagan Theater. So there are performances that go on in both of those spaces, as well as a lot of really great dance performances that come out of the dance department at Smith College, and they use those same spaces as well. So, that's another important part of my life, and I certainly invite any of your listeners who are looking for some theater during the year to come up to Northampton and join us.
And in between all of the, planning these trips and teaching and doing the Smith thing, you've obviously got to be working on Chester's 2019 season. When can we expect to hear an announcement about some of the plays?
So we will probably wait till about the beginning of the year, till somewhere around January 2019 to make the announcement. But I can tell you that we've already begun to make choices. I cannot tell you much about it, but I can tell you that we have one really astonishing play already selected that I'm really excited that we've already gotten the rights to. And, you know, the moment you have one play chosen, the work gets a little different of putting a season together because now everything's in relation to whatever you've got. You get one play picked and you say, okay, well, what might belong in a season that's in, whether because of what they share or how they contrast each other. So it is actually one of my absolute favorite things I get to do, which is to put together a season and think through what is the experience over the course of a summer that we're offering audiences.
Have your audiences been slipping ideas into your suggestion box, or have you polled the audiences in any way as to what kind of shows they might want to see, or are they pretty much just trusting you and say, Daniel, just program whatever you like because we like what's going on?
It's a little of all of those things. So I will say that some of our audience members absolutely will tell me when they see something someplace else that they think might be appropriate for us. And I'm always appreciative because it's great to hear about stuff, both a play I might not know about or the fact that an audience member, somebody who chooses to come to Chester pretty regularly, really responded to something that they saw someplace else. That means something to me. But I think also people do, to a certain extent, say, you know, we've come to know that you guys do really exciting plays and put great actors in them. And to a certain extent, there is a kind of, we're going to put ourselves in your hands and, you know, what's going on? What do you see? What are you bringing us? One of the steps we're trying to take is to do more developing of original work so that you can more consistently also count on Chester to be a place you could see a play that you just couldn't see anyplace else yet because we've built it.
Is there any plans in the future to expand the season in terms of either the number of plays or number of venues that you perform in?
Well, you know, it's a great question. I think that we've seen a lot of the Berkshire area theaters doing that, right? They've developed what it's starting to call these sort of shoulder seasons, right? So Berkshire Theater Group has a production coming up in a couple of weeks, and there are a bunch of other of the traditionally summer companies that have been doing that. I don't know if that's where we're headed or not. I think that, you know, our relationship with the town of Chester is terrific, and we really aren't looking to expand to other locations. That's really where we like to be. At the same time, I think it's pretty easy to imagine down the road that we might collaborate with somebody to do something in the off-season, and I think that those kinds of activities might well be in partnership with another organization if we were going to do it. We're a small theater, and that works for us, and we want to be a better and better small theater, but we're not trying to become a bigger theater.
Well, before we run, let's just recap the Toronto tour that you're offering. Are spaces still available for that if somebody wants to sign up?
I have to admit that they are not for that one. We will have another wonderful trip next fall, but for that trip, because it's coming up in just a few weeks, we're all set up, you know, hotel rooms, plane tickets, theater tickets, et cetera, et cetera. That one's pretty much done. London, on the other hand, we signed people up for about another month and a half.
So if somebody's interested in London, they should think pretty seriously about it and put a call in or go online and make their reservations quickly.
And if what they want to do next is just learn more about it, just give us a call, and I'll be happy to take the time to chat with people about it and answer any questions they might have.
That's terrific. And people can also sign up online to get information about the 2019 season.
They certainly can, and I sure hope they will.
Okay, terrific. Thank you for joining us. It's Daniel Elihu Kramer from the Chester Theater in Chester, Massachusetts, and some great tours up and coming, and I'm looking forward to your season. And we'll get you back here on the radio in the spring so you can preview that upcoming season. How's that?
That sounds great, Mark. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. You're listening to Artsbeat Radio here on 89.5 FM WSKB. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, you're going to meet a musician, Dave Brunel, who after a whole bunch of years finally has come out with a CD. We'll talk about music. Don't go away.
WSKB's programming is generously underwritten by Whip City Fiber, Westfield Gas and Electric, where they offer gigabit internet speed. Whip City Fiber, turning Westfield's neighborhoods into fiberhoods. On the web at whipcityfiber.com.
We thank the generosity of our underwriters. For more information, please contact the Westfield State Foundation at 413-572-8646.
He rules the roost on Thursday from 6 till 10. It's Patrick Berry.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from the campus of Westfield State University, this is 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back, everyone. Mark Auerbach here with Artsbeat Radio here on 89.5 FM WSKB. With me in the studio is Dave Brunel. Dave is from Longmeadow, Massachusetts, and started working on an album of original music, maybe some 30 years ago, and as it says, finally you got around to getting the CD up and running, and a lot of things, I guess, got in the way from the time you thought about it until the time you actually got it produced.
Yes, and thanks for having me on the show. I got married, I had a family, I had a life and a job, and well, I still have a life and a job and a family, but things happen, and then once we became empty nesters, I looked at, what you'd call a bucket list, I guess, and 90% of it was I really would like to record my original songs on an album, some of which were written in the early 80s and some are new ideas. So that's what I did.
When did you actually start putting the album together?
It was last October, so it took around 9 months. Yeah, I could have had a kid instead. Took about 9 months to put it together, but I worked nonstop on it with a lot of friends. I reached back into my past and called old musician friends and said, "Look, I'm doing an album. Would you come and lay some tracks down?" And everybody was very happy to do it. So it was almost a reunion of sorts, getting together with old musician friends. And I mean old. They're old now.
Yeah, they're all old,
yeah,
huh?
Exactly.
As you were doing this, I know that you do regular gigs at venues from the Red Lion Inn in Stockbridge to downtown Springfield. Did you try out any of the music that you were going to record just to see how an audience might like it? Or did you pretty much just go into the studio and work?
No, it's funny. When you assemble a song for a recording, a song that you've written, it doesn't necessarily mean that you know it to sit down and play it. So we've got a CD release party coming up in which I'm going to be recording some of the songs, and I realized I don't actually know these songs well enough to sit down and play them. So I'm working on that now. I mean, I wrote them, I should know them, but it's two different processes, the assembling and production of it and actually the live, performance of it.
And I mean, if you're sitting there as a solo pianist and singer, and you've got musicians working with you in the studio, does that change the scope of the song?
Yeah, it's funny. The first song on the album is called "I'm Going to Town," and I brought in my friend Bill Egan, guitar player, who you know, and I said, "Bill, it's a country song. I just need an acoustic guitar playing ching 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 ching." And he shows up with a Telecaster, which is an electric guitar, and he said, I got a different idea. I said, I got to tell you, Bill, it's not what I had in mind. He said, just listen. And he comes out with this, and suddenly the whole song just changed in a heartbeat. And the song is so much better because he did that. So yeah, working with other players is, you got to take their ideas.
Peter, could we play a segment like the opening song?
It's the very first thing you hear is Bill Egan's guitar.
Which track?
Number one.
Well, you treat me bad and you treat me mean. Make me sad, wanna holler when I'm in
my door, 'cause it's come real close to
Sounds like that could have come out of Sun Records
exactly
in the 50s.
Yeah,
It has that sound.
That's what we were thinking.
Like that $1 Million Quartet.
I
feel.
brought in
Yeah.
another friend who used to sing backups in bands with me, and he said we got to go bop 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 bop.
Yeah, like a doo-wop song.
Yeah, like "Don't Be Cruel" or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like it could have been recorded at Sun Records.
You've got a lot of different genres and types in the CD that run the gamut from serious to rockabilly kind of stuff. Is there a particular genre of music that drew you into music?
You know, I started listening to my dad's 45s when I was a kid, so I listened to big band and jazz stuff, and then I moved on. I've listened to so many artists over the years. I remember once after a breakup, a friend said, "You have to listen to Hank Williams for 2 weeks, and then you forget all about her." So I got hooked on Hank Williams that way, you know. So it's just there's a lot of genres. Even Alan Sherman, the great comedic musician, singer, writer. I love his stuff, and there's a novelty song on the album called "Jesus Cheeses," and that was kind of inspired by him, his style of writing.
What comes first for you, the music or the words?
Usually, a little section of song comes first, like maybe a hook or something like that. And then I will sometimes, if I'd written 200 songs, I'd probably have this down to a real format. But I'm still figuring that out. But I like it when I write the words first. But it's kind of hard to write a whole set of lyrics as a poem without, by the time you're finished writing it, having the song in your head.
Because you hear a rhythm in the words.
Yeah, I never understood that. Like John Lennon would say, he wrote the lyrics first, and it's like, well, how could you not have figured out the song by the time you finish the lyrics? I can't do that. It just kind of happens at the same time. But
now, you in your day job,
yes, sir.
When you're not playing in clubs or writing music, you in your day job put commercials together for people. So you've got to be aware of how music sways somebody's thoughts or moods when they're hearing a 30-second jingle or looking at a short video or something like that where music plays a part. How did that background that you have pull into what you do when you started writing? Were you thinking of just putting the song out there, or were you thinking of the impact the song might have?
Well, that's a good question. I have no idea. That was quite a complicated question.
Yeah, it was.
It really was. I mean, one thing that doing commercials has taught me is brevity. So, the songs don't have long solos in them, most of the songs are not very long. They kind of get to the point and grab your attention, and then move on. I'm just remembering back in the early '90s, I did a jingle for Westfield State. It went, "Get into a Westfield, into a Westfield, into a Westfield state of mind." I'm sure you'll all remember that. No one? No.
Long before I worked here.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, maybe somebody's got it recorded somewhere. I bet it's on YouTube. Everything's on YouTube.
Everything's on YouTube, yeah.
I know this is a difficult question, but now that you put these songs onto a CD and you probably listen to them, other people are listening and offering feedback and stuff like that, is any one song become your favorite, or are they all like your kids?
Yeah, and people have asked me that, and it's really hard because they are all like kids. One of the songs that's really special to me, I wrote a love song to my wife. Finally, we will have been married 32 years next month, or in November, and I guess I wanted to make sure the relationship was going to last before I spent time writing a song. And it's working out really well. So, but that's a special one. That's called "And I Love You," and it's even more special because my son played accordion on it. Accordion, despite its reputation, is a beautiful instrument, and so that one's pretty special to me. And then, I'm not much of a drinker, but I find that when writing country songs, writing about drinking is just really easy. So there's a song called "Wasted on a Saturday Night," and "I Guess I'll Just Get Drunk Again Tonight." Those are two different songs, and I'm not espousing anything. It's just easy to write about in a country mode. I was thinking Willie Nelson on one of those.
Yeah. But in terms of the tracks on your album, you had Peter Thompson, who's a kind of a beloved teacher of music at Longmeadow High School.
He was my teacher.
Yeah. He coached Bryn Cartelli.
Yeah.
And you have Bill Egan, who's another well-known Longmeadow musician. Your kids are both professional musicians.
Yes,
They're
they are.
on the thing. Where did you get your interest in music in terms of composing, and where did your kids find the interest in music? Did you give them lessons, or did they pick it up on their own?
No, we gave them real lessons with the real teachers who read music, and it was a great collaboration with my wife and I, because I expose them to all kinds of different music and show them how to do things on the piano and stuff. And but she was a disciplinarian, so she was the one that made sure that they did what I never did, which was practice. So they practiced and got really good. My daughter's a trombonist and a singer, and my son plays piano and saxophone and accordion, and they're very good. And they work in Philly and Chicago, and yeah, it was a collaboration.
What is it like working with your kids on a professional level?
I get very emotional about stuff like that. It means a lot to me. The beginning of I Guess I'll Just Get Drunk Again Tonight, I told my daughter I need a drunken trombone solo, so she pulled out the plunger and did a beautiful one of those wah wah, but it's just wonderful. It means so much to me. My daughter and I did gigs for years in bars. I had her in bars from the time she was 12, and we played a lot of clubs around here. And that was, those were some of the best times of my life, working professionally with her.
And when you got a chance to all collaborate on this album, were both of your kids around in the studio at the same time, or did you do your tracks at separate times?
No, everything was done separately. My son actually recorded his track in Chicago. He has a little studio in his apartment, and my daughter did it in my home studio in Longmeadow. But there weren't too many times where there were more than one musician and me in the room at the same time. When the album was recorded, just the nature of how it's done, or how I do it anyway.
Now, you're going to have a launch party for the CD coming up pretty soon, right?
Oh, geez, I better prepare for that. Yeah. It's September 21st, Friday night at Chicago. Not the city Chicago, Chicago, a club in downtown Springfield. It's on the left.
Chicago Martini Bar.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
So what happens at a launch party?
Well, this will be my first, so I'm making it up as I go along. But you eat free food, and then we're going to do about an hour's worth of material, some of which will be off the album, and a couple of other things too. One of the things I'm going to do over the years, I realized I've created spoof lyrics for Piano Man, but I never do them because it's always a request, and I don't want to ruin people's requests. So I'm taking all my spoof lyrics for Piano Man, and I'm going to perform them for the first time ever in public as a complete piece.
Where do you
Funny, actually.
Yeah, I don't understand particularly how CDs get out there and how they get promoted and stuff like that. But people, if somebody wanted to listen to your music,
Yes.
where do they go to find it?
They can go to Spotify. They can go to iTunes, CD Baby, Bandcamp. They can go to my website, which is davebrunel.com, and they can purchase either an actual physical CD or download the digital.
And you can also you can listen to a snippet of it or two.
Yeah, I think you can even listen to on Bandcamp. I think you can even listen to the whole thing, and then download it if you like it.
So, how many CDs do you have to sell to become what they call solid gold? Or maybe they don't call it that, but when you on TV shows, you walk into an office in Hollywood or Nashville, and you see this gold record in a frame on the wall.
Yes.
How many CDs do you have to sell to get one of those for your house?
I'm hoping it's 10.
So maybe you could have one by the end of the hour here.
I'm hoping. Yeah, no, I don't actually know the answer to that question.
Now, I got to ask you another question. A lot of people in the area may know you not for your music, but for the fact that you were a radio colleague at WRNX, Dave in the Mornings, for a long time. And somebody that you worked with kind of became famous.
That would be Rachel Maddow. My news sidekick quit, and we needed to replace them. So we held on-air contests. People would come and audition on the air, and Rachel pulled up one morning in a pickup truck with her little Buddy Holly glasses and crew cut, and she came up and she was very smart and very, very hilarious. So we knew on the spot that we wanted to hire her, and she worked with me for a year. Before she had to leave because she was neglecting work on her dissertation for her doctorate, so she left the show after a year. But we gave Rachel her first broadcast job ever.
Can she sing?
No, every sidekick I had could sing except Rachel, but she made up for it, I think in other ways. But no, she wasn't a singer. So
there's no likelihood that she'll join you for a track on your second CD?
We haven't discussed that, but no, probably not. Probably not. Somewhere I have a videotape of her and I on the air somewhere. It's the only one that exists. I should really pull that out and put it on YouTube or something.
When you have a chance to listen to music for relaxation, or you're driving in the car somewhere and you need to put something on, what genre of music do you tend to go towards? Well,
being an older guy, it's always old music. And it depends on my mood. I love Harry Nilsson from the 70s. I don't know a lot of people. Most people know him as the lime and the coconut guy, unfortunately, and he had one of the most fabulous voices in pop music. But of course, I listen to Beatles, and I listen to Hank Williams, and I listen to. I like Herb Alpert. It brings back memories of my dad, and it's just great music. But I'm all over the map as long as it's old.
So. It's the old stuff. Do you go to concerts? Do you try to go to live music whenever you can? Or
once in a while. We just went and we saw that Happy Together tour at the Calvin in Northampton, where it's all these old acts, and they're all old people. The Cow Silsey Association, and I love that so much. It was like everyone in the audience is up there in age, and I felt like it was a night to be proud of our age, because the music was just so great. But we're going to see Chuck Negron in a couple of weeks from Three Dog Night, and so definitely, I've got my favorite bands I always go to see.
Yeah, we all. I guess it doesn't make a difference what age you are. You always go back to a certain genre. Like for me, it would be like the Beatles or the Beach Boys or the Mamas and the Papas and stuff like that. Is there any contemporary musicians that you gravitate towards?
I not like a whole album's worth, but I hear stuff once in a while. I heard a song by Foster the People, Pumped Up Kicks, which has really disturbing lyrics as it turns out, but I thought, wow, that's the coolest song ever. That reminded me of stuff we used to play in the 80s. I was in a top 40 band in the early 80s when music suddenly exploded with new bands. It was a very exciting time to be playing top 40. But once in a while I'll hear something. I like some Jason Mraz stuff, and I'm sorry, I'm stuck for the name of another contemporary artist, so I guess.
Now, you do a lot of club gigs.
Yes.
I know that friends of mine that work in the theater in the Berkshires like to go see you at the Red Lion in
venue.
Stockbridge.
Yeah.
And you play standards and things like that.
All covers, yeah.
Yeah, and all covers and things like that. Are any particular artists that you like covering the most, or do you just mix it up?
I've got a real fondness for the Sinatra Rat Pack stuff because I can kind of sing like that. I do that. But I love stuff from the 70s. I frequently introduce a song by saying, "Here's a song from my childhood." Then I'll do a song by Badfinger or the Grassroots or something. The beautiful thing about the Red Lion Inn is the audiences are so wonderful that as long as I'm into it, they're usually into it also.
Well, they're generally people that go to the Red Lion have either been to Tanglewood before or one of the summer theaters there or one of the cultural things before they come to the Red Lion, and they're kind of like capping off an evening sort of thing, as opposed to some of the places here in town where it's their destination.
Sure, that makes sense. The actual name of the room is the Lion's Den. I like to play the song by Elton John, Daniel, and I always introduce it as I will now play Daniel in the Lion's Den.
How many laughs does that get?
That one always works.
It does.
Yeah.
Are you playing a lot of your stuff, your original material, in the course of some of these gigs, or do you try something out, a song that you're thinking about, and just see how it plays?
Just started doing that a little bit with a couple of the songs, and it's, a lot of the gigs are background music, frankly, and the Red Lion's not like that. That's more of a performance, but yeah, it's fun for me. I mean, sometimes it gets noticed, sometimes it gets ignored, but it's fun for me to do original stuff. I'll do more of that, definitely.
Are there any people that influenced you as a musician, either as they were your teachers or a sound or something like that's carried you over the years?
Well, as far as people I actually knew, I mean, Pete Thompson was one of those. He was my high school chorus teacher. I wasn't that interested in singing until he said, "Hey, you should join chorus." And I learned so much from him. And he and I play out. We just played at MGM last weekend, and we do gigs together. He had a huge influence. There was a fellow in the area years ago, a piano player named Russ Falvey, who passed away young. But he tried giving me lessons. He finally said, "Look, here's how we'll do it. If you practice, call me, and I'll give you another lesson." And that was the last lesson I ever had.
You mentioned the casino. Did you get a chance to walk through it, or did you just get a chance to perform?
Yeah, I walked through it, and I ate there at the steakhouse. And I mean, I'm impressed.
Yeah, do you think it's changing downtown?
Too soon to say. Well, I mean, yeah, initially, sure. I guess the big question is, ultimately, will the other downtown businesses do better or worse because of it? And I don't know the answer to that.
Well, you're a culture consumer, so do you think that the fact that they're bringing in things like Stevie Wonder or the Prince tribute concert, do you think Springfield will get a better level of entertainment now that MGM's in town?
Well, definitely, and hopefully the people will support it. I think they will, but it's all. Everyone's got their theories about the long term, what the casino's going to do, and I have a few, but I don't think anybody really knows.
Yeah. But so far, people. I mean, I got a chance to go down and tour the marketplace with the restaurants and stuff. I'm pretty impressed by it.
Yeah,
I think that it certainly has cleaned up downtown from State and Main south.
Yeah,
and it blends in so incredibly well with what was there.
They did a beautiful job of that. I wonder about anything north of Tower Square, for instance. I play every Friday now at Chicago. And will the casino help those clubs? I don't know. It's too far to walk.
Yeah, but I understand that they have this new bus service that kind of loops around from Union Station down to the casino. So I suspect that people will travel from one end of downtown to the other.
I hope so.
What's next for you musically? Now that you've got this CD out, are you going to work on another one?
I haven't thought about it, but I assume so because I had so much fun doing this one. I mean, it truly is. Imagine putting something off for 35 years that you really want to do, and because it just seemed like so much work. I mean, that's the thing. Projects, like when you get started, that's the hardest part. And once I got started, I couldn't stop. I just kept going and going and going. So, it was so exciting. I can't imagine not doing another one. I just haven't thought of any songs yet.
Do you think you'll take the show on the road, so to speak, and go out and do a concert finally of all your own work rather than covering other music?
My son's been encouraging me to do that. I don't know.
Well, hopefully we'll get a chance to find out. I'm not sure that I can get down to the launch party of your CD, but I certainly got to say I've been enjoying listening to the music on my drives to and from Westfield and all of that. And
thank you very much.
It's kind of a refreshing change to also know that from my hometown of Long Meadow, there comes other talent, and we were all kind of nurtured by the same teachers along the way. So it's good to see homegrown talent, as they say.
That was a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a compliment.
Oh, thank you very much.
We've been talking with Dave Brunel here in the studio today, and this is Arts Beat Radio here on 89.5 FM WSKB. Peter Coles is our engineer this morning, and next week at 8 o'clock on Arts Beat Radio, we'll be celebrating the 75th anniversary of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, and 75 years is a long time for any orchestra to survive in an American city. So we're very lucky to have the Springfield Symphony amongst us. Kevin Rhodes, the maestro, will be here, along with Steve Perry, the principal tuba player, and the young composer Adam Schoenberg, who is a Western Massachusetts native, who's gone on to fame and fortune as being one of the most prolific composers for classical music, specifically orchestras, today, and he'll be phoning it in from Los Angeles. That's next week on Arts Beat Radio. The following week, we'll be talking about the production of Pirandello's play Naked at Berkshire Theater Group with James Barry and Tara Franklin, two of the Berkshire Theater Group's most prolific actors who are husband and wife in real life, and get a chance to meet them for the first time. And then we'll end the month of September with Julianne Boyd, the artistic director of Barrington Stage, who'll be talking about their upcoming production of The Glass Menagerie. That's here every Friday, Arts Beat Radio, 8 a.m. on 89.5 FM WSKB. I'm Mark Auerbach. Have a great weekend.
There's a launching